Well, hello everyone and welcome to another very chilly day here on the MIgardener channel. I hate to say it, but it has arrived. Oh, it's arrived. Winter is here. We got a freeze last night, and so all the bird baths had a thin layer of ice in it, but the sun is coming over the house there, and it's going to start melting this very quickly. It's supposed to get up to, I think, like 51 today, so that'll be nice because I'm not ready yet. I'm just not ready yet. But anyways, what I wanted to come out today to talk about was some cold hardy plants that can tolerate freezes and frosts. And I get this question a lot, Luke, what does cold hardy mean? Now, cold hardy is kind of tossed around a lot. It's very vague, and it kind of confuses a lot of gardeners because they'll say cold hardy tomatoes, and then they'll also say cold hardy spinach. And so it's like, well, hold up here. I know, because I've been growing spinach and tomatoes long enough to know they don't grow in the same climates. They will never. No. Cold hardy spinach is far different than cold hardy tomatoes. For instance, here's a cold hardy tomato. It's dead. This is a Moscow tomato. And I don't care what tomato you're growing, if it gets down to anywhere that is cold enough to frost, your tomato is going to look like this. Solely for the fact that plants have cell walls, living cell walls that are filled with water. And if you've ever put a pop can or a bottle of water in the freezer, you know that water expands. And just like this, imagine the cell wall being the plastic or the aluminum siding to the can or bottle. That cannot hold the force of that water when it expands. It ruptures, and so what happens is essentially the cell walls all rupture. They all expand and rupture. So what I want to talk about is plants that won't do this to you. And that's by growing plants that have natural antifreeze. Now, we talk about all the time here what makes a good fall garden. And I've talked about in depth, how any plant can be in a fall garden, but you ideally want to pick plants that are really cold hardy. Now, really cold hardy is, I never consider this cold hardy, okay? A Moscow tomato can tolerate very cold weather, but I don't consider it cold hardy because it confuses gardeners. So what I consider cold hardy plants are plants that have natural antifreeze. So I want to show you all plants that have natural antifreeze in them. And what that will do is the cell wall, the leaf will kind of shrivel up. It'll kind of curl up, and you'll see in every example, hopefully we'll get to it before the sun starts coming up because it's going to start heating up quickly, but all the leaves are kind of shriveled up and kind of sad. But what happens is that it allows for the leaf to kind of buckle under that pressure. It kind of just wilts a little bit, and it pushes water before, as the cold weather comes, it pushes water out of the leaf, and so it can shrink, and that's why it shrivels, because if it had a full membrane of water, it will actually rupture like any other plant would. So the cell wall of these natural antifreeze plants will kind of shrink under that pressure, and then what happens is kind of a miracle. As the sun warms up, it will actually take back in that water, and it will grow. It will just be plump as it ever was. I do have some plants that are not growing here but are growing at the cottage. One of those is celery. So I do want to talk about some plants that we don't have here because I want to give you most of the options that are available to you. The first one is carrots. Carrots are very, very, very cold hardy, and in fact you can grow them all winter long. Now, they won't necessarily grow per se, but they will be able to survive, I guess is more or less the term that I would like to use. Another one, dandelions. Dandelions are extremely cold hardy, partly because they're a perennial, so they've had to adapt to very cold winters, and they had to adapt to being able to survive so that they can thrive where other plants can't. Other ones are mustards, collards, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, spinach is a very, very, very super uber hardy. You can almost overwinter it. It's so crazy cold hardy. Also, Swiss chard is very cold hardy. And so some of these plants, even though they're cold hardy and they can survive a frost and a freeze, some are, I guess you could consider them extra cold hardy. Plants like mache, plants like Claytonia, other ones, miner's lettuce is Claytonia. There's other ones like parsley. Even some of your herbs are very cold hardy. Thyme, parsley, sage, very cold hardy. So things that you can definitely grow in a fall garden, if not a perennial garden. Some of these are perennials. You can grow them almost year round. And so here in Michigan we don't have that luxury, but we definitely take advantage of it. For instance, we have some lettuce that I'll show you, and some arugula that we harvest from daily for our salads. And we don't use any cold frames, we don't use any hoop houses, anything like that. We just don't get into that yet. We don't get into that yet. Teaser. Next year we'll be getting into that, and I'm very excited about it. So this year was a little too late to plan for it, but next year with the new house, Mrs. MIgardener and I will be doing hoop houses and cold frames and all that kind of stuff that a lot of you have been asking for. So anyways, enough talk. Sun's coming over the house. Let's go check out these plants that have some natural antifreeze, because it's pretty cool. So here is our bed of self-sown arugula. This just went to seed in our musclin mix and sprouted here this spring. We just kept growing it, and as you can see, very crispy. Very, very, very crispy. Now what you want to do is you don't want to harvest it like this. If you're going to harvest some of your cold hardy greens after a frost, you do not want to harvest it like this, because if you harvest it like this and bring it inside, it will unthaw, but the cells won't ever replump. You want to wait. You want to wait till the sun unthaws. Give it about an hour or two, and they'll be nice and plump and actually look just like they would on a nice summer day. So another one that a lot of people actually forget about is strawberries. Strawberries are a cold hardy plant. Now they would never fruit in this. They would never ever fruit in this, but they are surviving in this. So you can still grow strawberries even in very cold weather. They're not gonna fruit for you, but they're surviving. And a lot of people worry about their strawberries and, oh, do I have to protect them? Oh no, they're going to die. They're not dying, trust me. They're extremely cold hardy. They're actually a perennial, much like dandelions are. They've grown in these climates. They know how to survive, they know how to thrive, and they know how to compete for space. So that is kind of taken into account here. So strawberries, extremely cold hardy. Now another plant that I love to grow is kale. Kale is a beautiful plant to grow in the garden. It's lush, it grows all season long. Early spring, late fall, doesn't matter. This plant grows in it all, and it absolutely can tolerate some of the coldest weather ever. I mean, just look at that frost. It's remarkable how frosty it got last night. And they all kind of crinkle up. See, that's what I'm saying. This is a prime example of kind of how they cope. They just kind of crinkle up. They get really, really small, and they just kind of lose all that water. And that is kind of that shrinking of the leaf that you'll see with all of your super cold hardy crops, is that they'll do that to protect themselves, and it works. It's awesome. So yeah, so grow some kale. Kale is extremely cold hardy, and in a lot of cases you can overwinter it with some protection. So now I'm outside of my lettuce bed here. This lettuce bed has been growing for 3 years. We did a short video on it on Facebook, kind of describing it and kind of how we like to grow with this here. But this is our lettuce bed, and it's been growing here for 3 years. Just self-seeds itself, and then we allow some to go to seed again when we harvest the ones that come up from seed. And this is so cold hardy. This has been growing here, like I said, for 3 years now, and we've been able to harvest it almost into December. It just freezes, much like you see. Freezes up just like this, gets nice and kind of shriveled up here. You can see some of the leaves kind of very frosty and kind of limp. And then what happens is they will again just kind of revitalized once the sun comes out and warms them up. And you never know that it was that it went through a freeze or a frost. It just absolutely is awesome. So here we have some herbs. This is kind of our herb ring underneath our tree here. Not a whole lot grew, so we threw some herbs in here and they decided to grow really great. And we got some awesome parsley. Parsley is some of the coldest hardy plants you will ever grow. They will grow all through the winter for you. Delicious, nutritious, extremely easy to grow, and awesome nonetheless. Very cold hardy. Now the next one we have is chives. Chives are a member of the allium family. All onions are extremely cold hardy. I forgot to mention that. Another one, chrysanthemums. Edible chrysanthemums, otherwise known as shungiku. That's an Asian edible green, extremely cold hardy. So grow shungiku. We have that in the store. I know we're not growing it here yet. We'll be growing it soon. I do want to show you as well. We have some thyme. Thyme is extremely cold hardy. Also a perennial. So it's going to grow for you very well. And then also another one that not a lot of people think about, marigolds. Now marigolds are extremely cold hardy. This one is still flowering through the frost, and while they're not, while they don't have a whole lot of natural antifreeze, they have a little bit of it, and they're doing well, and they're still flowering and very green and doing very nicely. And just when I thought I was all done, here's a good example of some dandelions. So yep, we do have dandelion greens here, and again, those are kind of those ones that just kind of sprout up as weeds, but they are delicious, super nutritious, and they can be found in almost every lawn. So there you go. So there's some nice cold hardy crops for you to grow. All right, I hope you all enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you all will try some of these cold hardy crops. They are awesome to grow, and they are really something that can extend your harvest into the late season even if you don't use any protection at all. So I'll talk to you all later. This is Luke from the MIgardener channel reminding you to grow big or go home, grow your cold hardy crops. Bye.